Thank you, Joey. What a great song leading into the title of this service today, and this sermon is No One Walks Alone. And it comes out of the Disability Awareness Group, friendship group, of what they wanted to focus on today, what we wanted to focus on today. And the scripture lesson is from, it's from Matthew, Mark, and Luke's Gospels. This is Luke 23, verses 26. This is the crucifixion of Jesus. As the soldiers led him away, they seized Simon from Cyrene. Cyrene, by the way, was a city in northern Africa. Simon was obviously in Jerusalem on pilgrimage for the Passover feast, who was on his way in from the country and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. Two other scriptures, 1 Corinthians 13, we've been working in that. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. And then a wonderful passage from Hosea 6:6, for I desire mercy, not sacrifice, acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. A couple of thoughts I want to share, and I have the joy and the privilege and honor of sharing this Sunday with Elise Caton. Many of you know Elise. Many of you know from her work. She's an occupational therapist, has her own business here in town, and has been a huge help to lots and lots of families whose children either have autism or, any number of kind of concerns. And I've been around some of their parents, and they just are so grateful for the ministry that Elise has. And so she's going to share some too. But quickly, for my part, Simon was in the crowd as Jesus was carrying his cross. And Jesus, we don't think of him this way, but Jesus developed a disability, an inability to carry his cross. Almost all of us will develop a disability sometime in our life. It's just a matter of fact. We don't think of Jesus as having a disability, but that's our particular perception. He was unable to carry the cross, so they got Simon. And two things happened to Simon. Simon's life was forever changed. In Mark's gospel, this same story talks about Simon, the father of Rufus and Alexander. Obviously, Rufus and Alexander were known in Mark's in the gospel people. They were leaders in the church. They were the sons of Simon. Simon, through this encounter with Jesus, which happens to us when we have a true encounter with Jesus, doesn't it? We change directions, and Simon changed his direction, became a follower of Jesus. Partly because he had this encounter with Jesus, partly because he was able to help Jesus. And it's in our DNA, isn't it, to want to help other people, make a difference. It's just how we're wired. We may submerge that, but I know from lots and lots of you out here that I've had encounters with, one of the greatest joys in your life is getting to help somebody else. And it impacts us. It's dramatic. It's powerful. And as the liturgy said, the Beatitudes, all of us want to be needed. Whether we have a disability or not, we want to be needed. We want to help. I'm so excited about the front of the bulletin, this thing that we're going to be doing, this swing for persons with disability. And I think of the good feeling that you will have when you contribute to the missions box, that a child who's never been able to swing before will now be able to swing. As Troy has reminded us in this stewardship emphasis, it is more blessed to give, whether it's financially or a note or aid or a prayer or whatever it is. All of us want to be able to do that. And as Blake was being ready to be baptized, he had that wonderful picture of a cow, and it brought me back to my 4-H days. But this movie that Lisa is going to talk to you a little bit more about, you can get it on Netflix. I had not heard of this woman, but everybody in the Disability Awareness Group had. Temple Grandin. Mark that down in your mind. Temple Grandin. Jan and I got it out of the library. You can get it on Netflix. Claire Danes plays the role of Temple Grandin, who became this amazing person. I was talking to somebody yesterday at the ball game who was into livestock, and she said, yeah, I heard Temple Grandin. It was an amazing experience. She was speaking at a large ranch in South Florida. She's impacted at least half of the cattle facilities in the country. Severely autistic. Didn't know how to read. Wasn't able to speak until she was 4 years old. If you watch one movie this year, watch Temple Grandin. But in the movie, There's a phrase, different, not less. Different, not less. She said, I'm different, but I'm not less. And I want that to be emblazoned on my heart, on my soul, on my being, that's how I approach other people, whether they agree with me in my views or not. They're different, not less. Our own family journey into the realm of accessibility. You've heard me talk about it before with our daughter Siobhan in 2001 in her accident. And I'll never forget, I'm not pleased about this, I'll never forget that after we realized she was going to survive, but we didn't know what was going to happen, if she would ever recover. We went to Brooks Hospital in Jacksonville. I went into the entryway and I saw 7 or 8 or 10 wheelchairs. And I literally recoiled and said, that's not going to be our daughter's life. Like I say, I'm not proud of that. I said, what is that saying about me? That I think she's different but less? Now I've come to believe that Siobhan and Robbie and Roger and June are different but more. Every time I'm around Siobhan or get an email, she texted me this morning, good luck, Dad. You're going to need it. No, she didn't say that part. But she could. I think different and more. Courage, sensitivity, compassion, caring. Wow. And then, I think I'm growing in this, and I think we as a church are doing better. We've got picnic tables now that aren't just like regular picnic tables, but one end extends over so a wheelchair can actually roll under into the picnic area. We have actually some swings that children with some disabilities can swing in. We do a number of things. We got some doors that are opening just right. But when I saw the front of the bulletin, I had 2 thoughts. Wow, what a great idea. And the other was, what have I been thinking about? Why didn't that ever occur to me before? Did it occur to any of you? Did it? What kind of message are we as a church sending when we have these wonderful playgrounds and children wheel up to them or wheeled up to the playgrounds, and everything about that playground shouts, okay, it's great to have you here, but this isn't for you. We're going to change that. It's going to be wonderful. And we're going to start with this wheelchair swing. And moms and dads will come and do what they do every day at the pumpkin patch. They hang out there. They have lunch. They have the kids jump in the bounce house. It's a wonderful thing. You know, it all comes down to our understanding of who God is. What kind of God we worship. Is our God we worship a God who embraces all of humanity and embraces us, or a God who does this? What kind of God do you worship? If you meet certain standards here, but if you don't, no, that's not the nature of our God. Our God welcomes all, and once we feel God's embrace around us, the thing we want to do is embrace others with acts of mercy and kindness. That's just the way I believe it works. Yesterday at Francis Lindbergh's funeral, 96 years old, wanted me to read John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And then I quoted something that somebody sent me an email. After John 3:16, for God so loved the world, comes this line, I am Jesus and I approve this message. It's the only time I've heard that phrase that I've actually believed what they said. That's enough of that. Elise, you come up and talk, would you? How's that for a lead-in?
Hello? There we go. I kind of wish I could carry this around with me everywhere because my voice is so tiny and small. Then maybe somebody could hear me, especially my kids. Anyway, so this is it's become one of my most favorite Sundays of the year. And it's just such an honor to be up here. And you make it so much easier, you know, and I look out and everybody's so nice and warm and smiling and welcoming. Instead of, you know, me doing this, I think, oh, okay, I can do this. So thank you for that. And one thing I was really excited about is when our team decided to talk about Simon. And as I started to look at Simon, and he's mentioned in 3 of the Gospels, but it's just one verse, and one kind of small detail. And I started wondering, well, what, is that really important in the whole story of what was happening? Why was this detail mentioned? And why, even by name, Simon, Simon from Cyrene, he did this. He carried the cross for Jesus. And so I can imagine just sort of him being pulled out of the crowd and just, you're going to be the one that carries the cross. And, I think in that moment he had, kind of a decision to make. He could carry the cross or he could carry the cross. And so as I'm trying to sort of sort this out in my head, I came across the verse of in Hosea 6:6, and in it says, "I desire mercy and not sacrifice." And I kind of thought, well, sacrifice is a good thing, isn't it? We all have heroes that we adore, who had done something, amazing, given of themselves, given their lives, given limbs, given, done some very amazing things to help, others and help others live a better and more fuller life. So I thought, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think that's what God is saying in here. But the nature of sacrifice in some way involves a bit of loss. There is a loss of a life. There's a loss of some sort. And I think what God is trying to tell us is that what he so wants for us first, before a sacrifice is even necessary, what I so want for you is to have mercy or compassion, to have love for each other. And then, is a sacrifice even necessary? Most heroes that you talk to, when you ask them about a sacrifice, they don't really think of it as a sacrifice. They think of it, as a gift that they gave in a way, that they were just doing the right thing. They were loving and have compassion for someone else. So really, in their mind, they didn't even give a sacrifice. They had compassion and love already. And really, our God, is not a God of loss. He's a God of fullness and of love and of blessing. And that's why I think he wants this for us first and foremost. One of the Hebrew words for mercy, and pardon my Hebrew if I'm saying this wrong, but it's hesed. And it has, hesed has 3 definitions. One being the right conduct towards your neighbors. The other being loyalty to God. And the third kind of means that it means both of those things at the same time. So I think that when we're showing compassion and love and mercy to the people around us, then we're honoring God at the same time. And so that fullness of life is what can happen. And it happens even in little small acts of compassion. It makes 10, 20-fold the fullness of what happens after the fact of just one little act. And so another way to kind of think about this is one book is called Leadership and Self-Deception. And it's not a Christian book, but it has a lot of Christ-like philosophy in it. And one of the main points that they talk about is with every interaction that we have with each other, with another person, is we have a choice. And we can see them as a person who has their own hopes, their own dreams, their own fears, their own struggles, their own potential. Or we can see them as an object. And when we see someone as an object, we think of them, or we're perceiving them more as a problem to solve, an obstacle in the way. We sort of diminish what their needs might be. And at the same time, we start glorifying our sacrifices that we make to help them along. We sort of amplify our own self-worth than our own needs, and make it much harder to see the other person's needs. So with every interaction, we have this choice. And I think, Simon had this choice as well when he came upon Jesus and when he was pulled from the crowd. And he had that choice of carry the cross or carry the cross. So each one of us every single day has the same decision to make, to see one another as a person who has these fears, that have struggles, but that have passion and the same kind of dreams that we all have, or we can see objects all around us. And I think all these little tiny decisions can add up to a life that's of great fullness if we're choosing to see them as people. Or we can have a life of just objects around us, and what a sad kind of loss that is. And don't we feel then that's when we're making the sacrifice, is when we feel like we're having a loss instead of, giving that gift of sacrifice. So people with disabilities, just like any and all of us, we all want to be seen as people. We all need love and compassion and mercy from each other. Nobody wants to be seen as an object or treated like an object. And one of the ways that I think this clip of Temple Grandin that we're going to show you in just a minute is kind of a demonstration of how all of those little decisions that we made to see someone as a real person, how they all added up to this lovely, full, wonderful, amazing life. And I think we're going to see that in Temple Grandin. And just to give you a little bit of background, she is a real person. She didn't speak till she was 4. She was diagnosed with autism in 1950, where really the only recommendation was to institutionalize. And her mother thankfully made the decision, I'm not going to do that. She refused to do that, and she worked really hard to get Temple the help that she needed, the support that she needed. She had to make really tough decisions in, should she send her away to boarding school? Is that the best choice? The daily struggles in and out, and am I dealing with behavior the right way? Whatever decisions there were to make, they weren't easy. And so in this clip that we're about to show you, she's in her 20s now, and this is, like Dan said, this is not Temple herself, but the actress Claire Danes portraying her. And she and her mom are attending probably one of the first autism conferences. And Temple seems to have found, a voice, a need to speak. And in doing so, she is sort of, taking on a new role, going into a new world. And you'll see the little door that appears. That's sort of her symbol for taking on a new role. And it's also the same time that her mom finally hears from Temple herself, the effects of all of the decisions that she had been making, that she was really supporting and helping Temple along the way, even though they were really tough. So I think we're ready for it, and I think you should watch the movie if you can.
It shows that autism is not a psychological problem.
I am not familiar with the Rimmer report.
Calm down, sweetie. Sweetie, calm down.
It would be better if you could get her to sit calmly. You're trying to control her.
But we were told self-stimming is good. It eventually calms them.
Self-stimming? Yes, self-comforting.
Self-stimulation, rocking, spinning, rolling on the floor, flapping.
Well, I think spinning is good. And rolling, too. Self-stimulation does seem to eventually calm the nervous system. It can be a way to compensate for not being held. And being held by another person is scary, but rolling or being held by surfaces produces the calming effect that ordinary children get from a hug.
How old's your child?
Well, I don't have children. No, I'm autistic. And I need the sensation of being hugged. And I've developed a machine that I get into and hugs me, and I'm different afterwards. I'm more social. Well, I didn't speak until I was 4. Now I have a BA and a master's, and I'm studying for my doctorate.
How did you learn to speak?
Please don't shout. Please don't shout.
Most autistic people are very sensitive to sounds and colors. overstimulation hurts. You know, people talking too much at once, you know, can cause us to panic.
How did you get cured?
Well, I'm not cured. I'll always be autistic. My mother refused to believe that I wouldn't speak. And when I learned to speak, she made me go to school. And in school and at home, manners and rules were really important. They were pounded into me. I was lucky. All these things worked for me. Everyone worked hard to make sure that I was engaged. And they knew I was different, but not less. Now, I had a gift. I could see the world in a new way. I could see details that other people were blind to. My mother pushed me to become self-sufficient. I worked summers at my aunt's ranch, went to boarding school and college. Those things were uncomfortable for me at first, but they helped me to open doors to new worlds.
Excuse me, please, but we want to hear everything.
Yes.
Tell us, please.
So now Temple Grandin is about 65 years old. She did get her PhD in animal science. She's been a professor at Colorado State University for the last 20 years or so. Half of the facilities in the United States that handle cattle are made from her designs, and her designs have made the process much more efficient and better profits for businesses, which also benefits the employees of those businesses. Her designs are safer for cattle handlers. Her designs are much more humane and much more respectful to the cattle because they are led peacefully along through the chutes. And really, at the end of the day, for all of us, it ends up with better beef for us and better leather products for us too. But Temple didn't get there alone. She had family. She had her mother who said she's different but not less. She had her aunt. She had handlers. She had a mentor who took the time to understand how her mind worked and kind of unlock the potential that was there. She had a magazine editor that said, just bring me anything and I'll read it. All of these people were seeing Temple as a person who had hopes and dreams and potential, and along the way struggles that they helped her through. And Jesus didn't get to the cross alone either. There was Simon who was there and saw Jesus beaten and broken and his body disabled, and he carried that cross with compassion. And I think that's why it's so important that his name was specifically put in that verse, that it was Simon that did this. So not one of us walks alone. And every person with a disability needs to be seen as a person with their own hopes, their own dreams, their own fears, their own struggles, their own potential. And it's probably not easy for us to know how to interact. It feels uncomfortable. It might feel awkward, and you don't know what to say or what to do. But that's okay, because they're probably thinking the same thing about you too anyway. As long as you're seeing them as a person, it's going to work itself out. So who will you be a Simon to? And what Temple Grandin are you going to help to lift up and just see the blessing flow? And are you ready for this fullness of life that God wants for you? And I hope that you are. And we're so glad that you're here today to hear our message to you. And we love you, and God bless you, and thank you so much.